Welcome to the Common Strides podcast. I'm Adam.
And I'm Bridie. Common Strides is an interview-focused show that highlights progressive issues from around the world.
If you like what we do, please visit our Patreon page and check out commonstrides.com for the latest episodes, show notes, and links to donate to the causes we are highlighting.
You can also reach us easily through commonstrides.com. Whether you have any follow-up questions for any of our guests, are interested in being a guest yourself, or wish to sponsor an episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by AdamGreenlee.com. That's right, that's me. Outside of Common Strides, I'm a music composer and sound designer whose work has been featured in TV shows, video games, animations, films, and podcast episodes like the music you're listening to right now. So if you're in need of custom music for any of your projects, visit AdamGreenlee.com and reach out to me today.
And now, on to the show. Welcome back to another Common Strides podcast. Today we have Rupesh with us on the show. So let's start by asking, who is Rupesh?
I'm a clown to begin with, and an independent filmmaker and an actor. At the same time, I'm very much interested in people, I would say, and how people behave.
Excellent. All right, great. And next question is, what is Rupesh?
What is Rupesh? I think I'm someone who would like to, at least I consider myself one of those person who put smiles on hundreds of thousands of people wherever I go. And I try, at least. I'm not sure if I'm successful every time, but I try. And I want to see myself that I make that happen. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. And where is Rupesh?
In my life?
However you want to interpret it. Yeah.
I'm in Mumbai presently, and in my life, I am somewhere where I'm starting to believe that there are more avenues to only acting for camera, and I'm taking things seriously to reach out to more and more people with theater in this pandemic as well. So this is where I'm in my life and geographically speaking.
Excellent.
I love that.
Yeah.
No one's answered it that way before. Right. Like where I am in my life.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
I'm at a threshold somewhere. When you grow up, you have all these aspirations of in front of the camera and, charming all these audiences, because I come from a city where they make a lot of films, Bollywood films. So, of course, I grew up with all those dreams with me. But on the road, you realize sometimes those things are on the surface. And sometimes you need those dreams and people to inspire you at the beginning of your life. And eventually you realize, oh, my God, it's not real. And the real things are laying somewhere else. But you have to take that path, I don't know if I make sense, but...
Oh, no, you make sense to me. Yep. You're speaking I used to want to be a rock star, had that sort of same, but now as a 30-something, I'll leave it at that, 30-something-year-old guy, I'm like, would I want to really be a famous rock star? Like, I don't think so. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Rupesh, and answering those first, 3 questions, letting our audience kind of get to know you. Common Strides is a show that talks about progressive issues where, we have a lot of political guests and guests that talk about social issues and things like that. And so if someone hasn't kind of read the episode description yet, they're like, why is a clown actor on this show? Well, one of the big things we do on this show, too, is try to talk about human rights issues and volunteer work and things like that. And so, Rupesh, you are here on behalf of Clowns Without Borders. And when I found this organization, something in me was like, we have to find somebody from this to talk about it. And so tell us about Clowns Without Borders and just let people know.
Clowns Without Borders, it's an international organization. It's in 14 countries at the moment. And Clowns Without Borders International is the umbrella organization. And there are chapters in many countries, for instance, in USA and Sweden and Germany and France and Spanish. But the Spanish Clowns Without Borders was the first organization started, I think if I remember it right, during the Kosovo War. And what Clowns Without Borders does is provide with psychosocial aid. And if I try to put it in simple words, we go and make people laugh who are living under stressful situations. And it could be war, extreme poverty, sex trafficking, anywhere where people and children shouldn't be living in the conditions that they're living. And of course, we are not going with food packs, and we are not, but we think in those areas, life is limited to food and shelter. But human life expects a little more. Not only human life, even dog's life expects little more than food and shelter, as we have created this earth where everybody has a right to live happily. At least that dream. They can choose not to be happy, but the happiness should be snatched away from them. And that's what Clowns Without Borders does. It goes and put a smile on their faces. At least we try.
That's awesome.
Very cool. It's important to remember that, like, smiling is something we all need.
I feel it's a basic human right to feel good about yourself. If you feel good about yourself, you will feel good about your family. If you feel good about your family, you will feel good about your community. It's an inside-out process. And if you don't put attention to that, of course, everybody tries hard to make our lives miserable anyway. So
sure, exactly.
Politics or anything else, all the policymakers, I would say. But we strive hard.
Excellent. You mentioned places that might be having war conflicts or like poverty, or I think on the website I saw something about like natural disaster places that are affected by that. So you're going and you're performing for these communities that are they're in need. And other charities might be helping provide things like medicine and food, but you guys are providing a very other vital part of life, something to help restore some humanity there, which is laughter. And I think that's so great.
I think many times places like those, when they see people have come here just to see them, is kind of giving them hope. And it's kind of their faith in humanity restores just by seeing clowns there, that somebody actually cares and not treating them like, oh, here is your food. Oh, here is your shelter. It's a little bit than that. And I think it's needed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As amazing as this is, what made you want to get into this? And were you a lot younger? You've been with the organization for a while, right?
Yeah. This is 11th year. In 2010, I did my first performance for Clowns Without Borders, and I also went to Swedish Clowns Without Borders training. They held a 6 months training camp, and my first clown teacher, I would say, Nalle Laanela, he's also the forming member of Swedish Clowns Without Borders. So he started the organization, and he was my teacher. And we got trained, and later I got to travel in many crisis areas. But how I started, as I said, sometimes we need all these fake dreams. I grew up in Mumbai and I went to Sweden to study theater. I got very inspired by a theater company in Sweden called Slava, and they were visiting India, and I saw them, and I thought, oh my God, can somebody have this polyphonic singing, and they can move and they can dance and that I don't see in cinema acting. And I was like, I want to study with these people. And that's how I left this Bollywood dream and went to Sweden to study that. Ended up, I had one German teacher, and I attended a clowning workshop. And first time I put on the red nose, that was 2008. And I felt totally naked. I felt, oh my God, all these years I was just pretending. And this is something real. That smallest mask in the world unmasks you. You cannot pretend anymore. You cannot show your skills. You cannot show how great you are. It's all about, hey, you are just you. And you at your deepest level. And if you can show that nakedness without any layers of pretentious masks that we wear, and that was the revelation for me. Oh, this is something that I actually love and admire. The journey started there.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I want to dive into that more, just kind of your history and all that stuff. But before we do, let's talk a little bit about Clowns Without Borders. So there's all these different chapters in Clowns Without Borders around the world, and then all these places where people are dealing with crisis and communities that are suffering. And are you traveling abroad? What kind of places are you visiting specifically?
So primarily, most of the chapters are based in Europe. And then America, Brazil. Brazil is a very new chapter. Just maybe 2 years ago, they got in the international organization. But primarily, it's European countries having Clowns Without Borders. So as such, after Second World War, there aren't many huge crises in Europe. So a bunch of artists came together and realized, hey, we can actually go out where we are needed, and not having this only high culture audience where they come, oh, wow, very nice. So actually where it's needed, the thought started there. And I can just talk about myself, all the expeditions that I had been to. So I started my first Clowns Without Borders Swedish tour expedition, and it was in Moldova. Moldova is a very special country. It's kind of in between USSR and Europe. It's Europe, but not Europe in a way. And they have this culture where parents actually leave the children to in an orphanage and go and work in Moscow. So we visited orphanages where hundreds and hundreds of kids were living there for many years without seeing their parents.
Wow.
I asked few, so when did you see your parents last time? 8 years ago.
Oh my gosh.
And it just blown my mind that time. And living in this community, it was a very special place, that one. And we did a lot of shows there in Moldova, visited these orphanages, which are mostly in the countryside of the country. Then I traveled into Egypt, Israel, Palestine, Bhutan. Bhutan, we were the first foreign clowns invited in the country. Bhutan is kind of a closed country. They don't allow a lot of foreigners to be there. I mean, I'm Indian, so I can always go, but my Swedish clown partner also was there. And we were the first clowns invited by the king. We traveled there. And India, I've been running a Swedish Clowns Without Borders chapter in India since 2012. So it's almost 9 years now. And the US also, I traveled into some prison, they call, but it's actually not prison, but it's a kind of a foster care. I couldn't understand what that was, but it was a special place.
Sure. It's probably like a halfway home or something like that. And yeah.
Wow.
All the girls, they were teenagers and they had some criminal backgrounds. And they were trying to run away from there, and then they had guards, and it was a special place. So all these countries have done expeditions, sometimes for 2 weeks, sometimes for a month, sometimes for 3 months. And it has been a long journey, I would say.
For sure. Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it hard? Like, do you find it difficult when you're visiting communities in crisis for them? Do you find it hard for them to open up and allow themselves to be entertained? Or is there typically like a welcoming or a yearning even for this type of thing?
It's the response is very cultural. Some countries, it's very easy. Some countries, it's very difficult. Countries where they have traditionally habituated to watching performances, they are kind of welcoming. Some countries don't have that culture. And suddenly it's kind of, for them, it's very new for them. So it depends. A little story I can tell you, which was an eye-opener for me. Like, you might have this argument in your life many times. Why art? Why do you need art? We can have banks instead. Why do you need art? We can have a supermarket. Why do you need art? Ongoing debate.
Right.
My personal experience to that, why do you need art? We started Clowns Without Borders India project in 2012. First time we visited a community where one side they have a railway tracks and one side they have a national highway in Bombay, and they have a slum area in between. So that is very common for that community to lose their children in accidents either of the side of the road. At the same time, because they are homeless community living in the shanty town, people think they are very rough. The children are very rough. So when we visited for the first time, those children were overwhelmed. And it was me, 2 Swedish clowns, 1 Finnish clown, 1 Danish clown, though I could speak the language. And I tried to keep them away because we were setting it up. but they wanted to touch everything. They were touching our things. Maybe they were just overwhelmed, but they were very aggressive. We had some girls with us and they wanted to touch them because they looked different. They looked foreigners, very tough. It took us half an hour to set everything up. And those half an hour, they gave us a lot of troubles, a lot of feelings inside them, and they didn't know how to channelize. And they were picking up our things, screaming, teasing us, using a little bit violent acts in a way. After half an hour, we started the show. Of course, they laughed out loud and amazingly, they welcomed us. After the show, they were very happy. And now, the next year, we went again. All these children didn't come to us. They automatically went and they sat in their places. Third year, we visited. They were sitting 1 hour before we arrived there.
Wow.
Already, nobody told them that you have to sit here just because they enjoyed what they saw. They had the memories of it to cherish. And the organizer tells us, oh my God, this never happens. 1.5 hours, they sat there. And when we started the show, they started to laugh. So art has tremendous power to transform the violent energy into very constructive energy. And art can do that. And that's why theater is important. That's why art is important, because it brings community together and it makes them behave in a civilized way when they live under very stressful situations. So
that's beautiful.
But other places might be more open or easy to entertain. Is that the cultural differences are there? Yeah.
Asia is a little bit more open. When we were in the Middle East, it was a little bit difficult. Some other places are really difficult.
Just understanding that is probably why you're so good at what you do, right? I'm sure it's like a little bit reading the room too, right? Like what they need, what you know.
Exactly. And you should know what your audience is,
Right. So I want to understand a little bit more about your history with, being a clown. Did you get into being a clown through Clowns Without Borders? Or was that a thing that you had done before that you brought to Clowns Without Borders?
When I did my first workshop, I realized, I was doing all these things. I just didn't know it was called clowning. When I played theater, I was that funny guy doing funny characters and I had that natural timing. But I didn't know, oh my God, it can be also taught. You can use method to madness. I just knew the madness, I would say. But method to madness, I learned first, my first workshop was with Clowns Without Borders. Our workshop is the training, 6 months training. And then I got into the National School of Dramatic Arts, Stockholm, and I did my MFA. That was also Clowns Without Borders kind of a program inspired. And my specialization was in clowning. And then I've been performing for all these years. But yes, I had to develop my persona. We are situated in these 3 continents, but our understanding of emotion and our evolution has taught us that we laugh for the same things and we cry for the same things.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've been living for the past 10 years in Sweden, right? And so you've been working with Clowns Without Borders, the Sweden chapter, but now you're back in India. So can you tell us a little bit about why you moved back and how you're still going to be involved with Clowns Without Borders from there?
Sure. So I grew up in Mumbai. I was supposed to stay in Sweden for 1 month. I ended up staying 10 years, got a Swedish wife and 1 half Indian Swedish kid. And then I moved back in 2015. So before that, I had been to Israel, Palestine, and all other countries. And while living in Sweden, I thought, oh my God, I should go to my own country and perform there and see, like while growing up in Mumbai, you've been told, hey, don't go to that area. Same for you and same for anyone. In your own city where not to go. So 2012, I got my first daughter. And she was just 3 months old. And I thought, hey, I told Emma, my wife, let's go to India and we're going to tour for 3 months with our baby. And I have this Clowns Without Borders project. Let's see what happens. And she was also equally crazy. So she got her here, our baby, and we started performing. And for me, the biggest shock that I got was when I ended up in the red light district in Mumbai, one of the biggest red light district in Asia, I would say. And we saw these small children watching the show. Their mothers were prostitutes. They didn't have fathers. And then we were told stories from the NGO workers that girls are being sold here for 5,000 rupees. That is like $80. It's still happening.
Wow.
Nobody knows about it. And exactly that time I got my daughter, it was a shock. It's like one of those moments where you lose faith in humanity and you feel like it's not possible. People can't be as bad. But it was true in a way, that because they told they've been living there, they've been working there. And I saw these little small kids that we were performing for. And it was kind of disheartening, mentally disturbing. I went home and I told Emma, sorry, I got you here, but I'm not going to go there again, ever. I'm not going to perform. I called Jennifer, who was the General Secretary of Clowns Without Borders Sweden. And I said, I'm sorry, I don't want to go there again. It's disturbing to see your own city where you grew up. And people told you, don't go to that area. So you never went there. And suddenly, because of Clowns Without Borders, you go there and you see the reality, the other side of the dark realities of your own city, which is disturbing. Because all my growing up years, I could have seen that, but I didn't. I choose to close my eyes. So it was disheartening. But when I went back to Sweden and I was playing with my baby, and every day, every night, I thought about those children.
Yeah.
Many times I had these nightmares. Sometimes some incidences, they shake your core. And that happened to me. It lasted for 3 months. And I called Jennifer again and I told her, hey, Jennifer, I want to go there again. And they said, okay, please go, because they saw what we did. So we went there again in 2013. And again, there was these girls there. And I got, okay, what is it? What is happening? Then we went there again in 2014. And when we were there in 2014, these girls who were watching our shows, they told us, hey, why can't you do this for our mothers? They would also love that. I said, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's invite the mothers also. 2015, we made a project where we got their mothers and the daughters and all other NGO workers under one roof, and we started performing for them. And they loved it. And the mothers came to us and the NGO bosses, and they said, hey, why can't you teach this to our children? And I say, oh, that's a great idea. So I asked Jennifer at that time, hey, Jennifer, can we make some kind of a program where we actually teach them? So we started teaching this girl clowning techniques. 27 girls we chose. First time we go in this class, they wouldn't even look in our eyes because they don't see nice men.
Right.
All the NGO workers are women. Only men that they encounter are pimps or police officers who trouble their mothers. So they don't know good men. I mean, we don't say that we are good men, but some normal men.
Right.
They would look down. They wouldn't look up. And we started their training. And 2015, January, we started training. December, we called their mother. Every week, once a week, we would teach them. We called the mothers 2015 to see the show. And these girls, they performed for their mothers. And we didn't perform, but they performed. And the mothers laughed out loud, like they were rolling down from the chairs. And because they're just seeing their children performing, And then the mothers came to us and say, hey, now we can see they can do other things also. They don't have to be like us. And we work with Apne Aap Women's Collective, an organization who is working for stopping second generation prostitution. So we work with these girls. And it started in 2017. These girls went to Poland to participate in a Brave festival that happens, and they invite children from around the world. During the same time, they went to Sweden and performed in different places. And 2019, we chose 7 girls that were really active. These are the same girls that we started training in 2014. The 7 girls, and we made a professional clown show with them called That's How We Feel. And it's about, as a teenage girl, how do you feel to grow up in a red light district, but having a clown perspective on it. So they're very funny when they tell stories, and it's very cathartic. And we got nice reviews. We also played in so-called professional theaters where people from Bollywood came and they saw and they were crying. And we got really nice opening, and then the pandemic happened. but we did 20 shows before that pandemic hit us. We did 20 shows, professional shows, and that happened. But during this time, in 2016, I started kind of inception of Clowns Without Borders India, because they don't have any chapter in this part of the world, in Asia. So 2 years ago, we got the approval. And this year, we were supposed to be included in Clowns Without Borders, the international, as a chapter, but pandemic happened. So we couldn't do the last paperwork. But it's going to be done around September. And then Clowns Without Borders India will be officially there, which is a long journey. And in that journey, there was one girl, I would like to take her name, Shraddha. She was one of those girls when we performed for the first time in 2012, and I said, I'm not coming here again. That girl was sitting there, and she was 7 years old that time. And now she's 17, and she has got a stipend for 3 years, Sweden, to become a director and a trainer. And she will take over the trainings, training the girls, the next generation, because she's from the community. She grew up there. It's nice that someone from the community who understands them better than us. So this is where Clowns Without Borders India chapter is. And at the same time, we have also, during the pandemic, we realized, okay, we are all talking about Mumbai, we are talking cities, but what about countryside? But we started a new project this year where we're going to teach some Adivasis, that is like natives. We all are kind of native, but they are the natives because they lived in the forests so far. And they are so dependent on the forests, Indian forests. They are also very vulnerable communities because they are addicted to alcohol, early marriages, 15, 16-year-old, they marry and get children, and a lot of troubles, and they're kind of isolated from the so-called civilized world. So, I mean, for me, they are very progressive in their own culture, but, it's like they're kind of isolated. So we are reaching out to them, and we are using this That's How We Feel model, where we don't want to give them stories. We want them to tell their own stories, their own voice, but having clown perspective. So it's a two-way training where normal person like me who lives in this society, the world, the modern world, having TV and access to wealth, we also understand what they are going through. But when they tell their own stories, they also feel that emotional cleansing for them. This is what we are figuring out. And now we have a whole team of artists that commonly believe in this, and we are doing it.
That's awesome. Congratulations. On this new chapter and everything.
You're giving people who didn't have a choice of anything else, a choice for something else. That's very cool.
Yeah, when you were telling your story about the girl who's now being trained to be a director and has this really amazing path in front of her now that wasn't there before, I started getting tears in my eyes. I don't know. That's amazing. That's really awesome. And I'm really glad that the organization is growing and finding new opportunities to sort of create opportunities for other people. So
I think that happens when you invest in people. That happens when you don't try to figure out, what's the profit in this? You will not see the profit in 1 year and 2 years. You have to keep investing in people, and the profit that you see is the growth of a human being.
Right. Yeah.
You cannot calculate that in terms of rupees or dollars or euros. Human growth can be valued by human values.
Wow. I like that approach.
Yeah.
What has been the hardest show you've had to do? And what was involved and what made it so difficult for you and your crew?
There are a couple of them, but I would say one show that it always stays with me. And that when we were in Palestine, Israel, Palestine. And it was a camp called Janoon, if I pronounce it right, in West Bank side of Palestine. It was me, one Swedish clown, one Finnish clown. And we went to this community. At first time in West Bank and Israel also, wherever we performed, all the kids would run after us and, clowns are here. And they were very happy. But this particular village we went to, and nobody, no children, we don't see children. And you're like, oh, what's wrong? We don't know what's going on here. And then we had to go and meet the village chief, and then the children were hiding inside. And it was not very normal thing for us to see that. And then we go inside and we say, hey, we're doing clown show, blah, 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 blah. Somehow the children came to that little hall they had. They had some hall where we started performing, and they were so scared. And in the show, one of the clowns, Swedish clown, would do some balloon tricks and make some animals, And all other places we did that. Everybody, all kids jumped onto it, and they wanted one of those, the balloons. But this place, the children they were sitting like this. They didn't want to touch. They didn't want to laugh. And we were figuring out, why aren't they, what's wrong? We didn't understand. It took us about 15 minutes before they started to little bit smile and giggle. And of course, at the end of the show, they were laughing and they were very, I would say, stress-free, that we could interact with them. But anytime we would give them something, they would go like this. They wouldn't take anything. And later, there was some mission going on there, a church, some European mission was there in that village. They told us stories. We didn't see it with our eyes, but they told us this. The Junun, that village was in a valley, and on top, close mountains, there were Israeli illegal settlements that they have in Israel, many places. And every Friday, they would walk from this mountaintop to this with guns. They would carry guns, and they would just walk from the village, creating this terror in a way. So that was a Friday. So the children were scared. On every Friday, children wouldn't come out because they were so scared of this march that they would do. And so when we went there that day, it was a Friday. So they were so terrified already. And it was so difficult for us to connect. And that politics is very complicated about Israel, Palestine. I don't know what is right, what is wrong. And I have lost my perspective while I was there. But whatever terror can actually create emotional violence in children. And it can really terrorize them, which can have effects after many, many years. And you don't know how and when and how that anger is going to burst one day. But laughter can cure at least that little for that day. I don't want to claim that, hey, something great would happen in their lives, but at least one Friday we could make them laugh instead of feeling terrorized.
Wow.
It was in 2010, and today we are in 21, and it's still, I could still see the pictures if I try to visualize it. I see it in front of my eyes now.
Yeah.
Very tough.
Not to turn this super political, but here in America, there's this big thing. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it's QAnon, this conspiracy theory that there's this, I mean, I don't know. It goes as far as say that like Joe Biden is a lizard alien that runs some satanic cult, some stupid thing. But one of the biggest components of that was this whole thing about these child sex predators that are running the government, that Hillary Clinton ran a child prostitution ring out of a pizza place, and a guy went in there with a gun because of it, because of these conspiracy theorists, and then like I was listening to a podcast about QAnon, and they were talking about these people that buy into these conspiracy theories aren't always, they're not like crazy people, A lot of times it comes from a caring, like, oh my God, there's these kids in trouble, and they get sucked into this thing where they start to believe these stories. And I guess it's just right now, when you're telling a story of like these kids that are actually living in terror, that are actually needing help, and here we are in our country almost shooting up a pizza parlor over bullshit. Like, it's just insane to me. And sorry, I just had to get that out because it made me really feel that. Like, I just wish people would put their money where their mouth is. If you really care about children, look for where the children are really hurting and needing it.
As you said, we as humans, we feel things. We feel for less powerful. It's natural in us. But the whole system tells us, hey, no, judge that morally, judge that politically. Which side are you on? That's what organized politics teaches us. But organic politics is you cry for less powerful and you get angry at the powerful.
Yeah.
Because we are, as I said, we are extremely social animals. So if you really observe a pack of dogs, if someone gets hurt, the others, they come close to that dog. Or elephants, if you see a pack of elephants, one elephant gets injured, the other ones don't leave that elephant. They wait. Same for humans. But this organized religion and organized politics tells us, hey, no, which side are you on? Either you believe this or you believe that. You believe leaving or you believe staying. But no, it's about staying and leaving together. But nobody teaches that.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, absolutely.
In our pre-interview, you said something that really stuck out to me. You said, when you laugh out loud, you need people. And so I was wondering, can you tell us a little bit about how the laughter that you are creating has actually been a huge part in others' health and well-being?
Yeah, I think we all know, and especially during this pandemic, everybody has got this realization to its fullest that humans are a very social animal, like dogs and horses and other social animals. We are one of those. And the more we isolate ourselves, the more health and mental issues we will have to deal with. And we cannot deny that, because if you see, children are facing that with the Zoom fatigue is a real thing around the world. And we are realizing more and more. So what the principle that I worked with during my workshops and also in my work, that human body can respond to any kind of stress in three ways, three physical signs that we have when somebody is going under tremendous pressure. It could be mental or physical, or it could be a combination of both. So the human body reacts, either they laugh out loud or they can cry. And the third thing is violence. They can get very angry. And you see, after you have gone through either of it, your body feels very relaxed. If you have bursted out on someone with anger, you feel very light afterwards, Or if you laugh out loud, like too much, you feel light. You cry so much for days maybe, and then you feel light. So these three things we have to accept. We cannot deny that. We get angry, we can cry, and we can laugh. But there is a very beautiful thing attached with all these three things. In simple words, that we humans are only can laugh when we are in a community. Laugh out loud. I'm not saying smiling, but when we laugh, like that kind of a cathartic laughter can only happen when we are a group of people. And that's why in the 80s and 90s, if you see soap operas during that time, they would always have a laughing track behind. So even if you're watching the serial alone, they would fool your brain thinking that there are more people laughing, so you're allowed to laugh, And for instance, I just give you an example. Tomorrow, if you are in a big office or in a bank working, and you go there and you see your boss standing alone outside of your office building, alone, and laughing out loud. Or you visit your family and your father is outside of house and laughing out loud alone. Oh my God, you're going to think something has terribly gone wrong. He has lost it. You're not going to go and laugh. You're going to, Papa, what happened? Yeah? But imagine your father, your mother, your brother, and some friends are laughing together. You're going to go and join and say, hey, what's the matter? Let me know and I can laugh with you. So that is the beauty of laughter, that you can't laugh out loud alone. You need a community to laugh together, right? Now imagine the same scenario, whole your family, your father, your mother, your brothers, and your neighbors outside of your house crying together. Oh my God, has somebody died in the house? If we are a group of people and one person starts to cry, we all empathize. Hey, what's the matter? But imagine if we can also cry together. And that's where the clowns come in play. They can make people laugh out loud together, and they can make people cry together. And that's where the emotional cleansing happens. And use this word emotional cleansing because every society needs emotional cleansing. And if this laughing and crying together doesn't happen, it's going to come out as a violent act. All of us is going to carry that stress, tremendous stress inside you. I have personal experiences because I grew up in Mumbai where you have a lot of people. When you travel in trains, what happens there, if you bump onto someone, they can get very angry because too many people cramped up in a one compartment like this. So a lot of emotional anger, mental, physical anger, because these people are working 12 hours a day, traveling 4 hours in their lives, living under stressful situation, under tremendous poverty. What do they deal with? So it's very easy for them to go and beat their women at home, their wives, because it can happen because this anger that they carry, not only them, around the world, anyone. But if they could if they could laugh and cry together, they will be less violent. And there have been cases, any country who invests in culture has low crime rate. Any country who invests in people, invest in culture, theater, they have a low crime rate.
Yeah.
That's why laughing and crying together is very important.
I love that philosophy of laughter and the idea that without such a thing, communities are risking some serious repercussions, right? Especially communities in crisis situations.
I always say clowns, they don't tell jokes. They are the joke.
Yeah.
Okay.
A stand-up can make jokes. They can tell jokes. They can pick a person and make a joke about them, about their identity, about the way they are, who they are. But clown won't do that because clowns, they are more childlike. They are the joke. They don't tell jokes. And that's why it's a very difficult place to be as an artist, where you are so transparent and you are so vulnerable at the same time. So you have to maintain that decorum, I would say. And the moment, at least for me, it works that way, that the moment I try to be smart or I try to pretend to be smarter than my audiences, then they start to see the smart actor in me and they cease to believe in that red mask that I'm having, which is a declaration of, hey, look, I am the joke. I'm not here to tell you a joke. I always say clown's job is not to make people laugh. Clown's job is to give its audiences heightened emotional experience. Laughing or crying is just an after effect. Sometimes they would laugh together. Sometimes a group of people might laugh, but a single person can cry in the same show. Or sometimes they laugh out loud so much that they cry.
Right.
So I don't go with the expectation that, hey, I'm going to make you laugh today. No. I go out there saying, hey, I'm going to give you heightened emotional experience so I can do emotional cleansing for the community or whoever. And that is the goal.
Wow.
Excellent. Yeah. That's great. That's great.
What is your character name?
Popo, Clown Popo.
Okay.
That's awesome. So how was this identity created? How did you come up with Popo and what does it mean to you?
I think we all have that clown residing within us. It's in you, it's in President Trump, and it's in President Biden also. And it has our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. We all have it. We cannot deny that. Even though you're powerful, you still have it. You are the least powerful, you still have it. It just, we don't let it out because the norm tells us, hey, it's not allowed. But my clown came out when I did my training with Clowns Without Borders. And if you ask me why Popo, I don't know. It just came out. In the training, my teacher asked me, oh, so what is your name? What is your name? And I said, Popo. I thought it was very easy to pronounce. If I go to, say, Israel, and I say my clown name is Popo, it's easy for them. If I go to Bhutan, I say my clown name is Popo. They remember. All the places I visited the second time, they already knew my name because they were seeing the performance the second time. So it's easy.
That's awesome. That's great. Do you have like a shtick or something? Like, what does Popo do as part of the show that that might be unique, you know?
I also work with the principle in clowning, which is comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable. So clown Popo is very compassionate. It's mischievous. It's like a childlike. So children should relate to it.
That's so cool.
Hey, you know, we're getting near the end of our time, but I really want you to tell the story that you told us in our pre-interview about, you know, going to Greece and the refugee camps, the Syrian refugees, and then how later you had an encounter again. That if you could just tell that story, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I think that was also, I think 2015 and 16. It's like it's been so many expeditions, so I started to kind of forget
Sure.
the time what happened. I think it's 2015 when the Syrian crisis started. I was living in India, but I was doing some jobs in Sweden, doing other things. And during that time, we had an expedition in Greece on the island of Lesbos, where the Syrian refugees were crossing in Mediterranean Sea, and they were coming from Turkey. So they were having their base in Turkey on the other side. You can see the other side. And when I landed in Lesbos and we drove by, because it's beautiful, it's extremely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
But on the seashore, we saw hundreds of life vests, we saw shoes, we saw bells, we saw clothes of children.
Mm.
It was hurtful to just see that. And every jacket had a story to tell. Every shoe had a story to tell. Every small t-shirt of a child had a story to tell. We didn't know that story. But what we experienced the next day, we actually saw the boats coming. We actually saw Syrian refugees crossing the border in these small, what boats are they called?
Like the rafts, yeah.
Kind of rafts. And the wind blows in Mediterranean in that part of the, so sometimes they sink in, sometimes European authorities try to scare them away, but sometimes they cross. Things like that were happening. And we saw every boat had 30 people, 30, 40 people coming, like cramped up with small children like these. Small children, terrible. But I have this memory when one Greek man, maybe 8-year-old, standing there in that freezing cold, offering these refugees a small cup of Greek tea. That was so beautiful to see.
Oh, wow.
Memories like this, it restores your faith in humanity. And after that, we did a lot of United Nations had a camp there. We performed there and we heard many stories. One man was laughing so much and he had broken arm and he was laughing. And then we talked to him. And then with that laughter, he just told us that he lost one son yesterday. He drowned while crossing.
Man.
Yesterday. And then he started to cry. Terrible stories we heard. And small children, oh my God, small children. So many of those that we did shows for. And we did many shows in the United Nations camp there. So that was that in 2015 or 14. And after 2 years, in 2016, 17, I was touring with my clown show. That was for kind of a high culture audience. How do you say? People who pay a lot of money to come and see performances.
Right.
We had that kind of a show. And we were performing in Frankfurt, in Germany, in a festival. It's a different kind of a show. It was also a clown show, but a different getup and all that. And after the show, a bunch of teenagers, they walked up to me and they started to talk. They were speaking Syrian and tried to say something. And they had one teacher who could translate. And then she started to say in English. And one of the boys was interested if my name was Popo. He was asking, is your name Popo? And I said, no. I have a clown name, Popo, but that is some other show I do. How do you know? I asked the boy, how do you know about Popo? And then he had shown his phone. And it was a picture with me, my clown character Popo, him, and some of his cousins. And then he started to tell he had seen me in Greece when we had gone to do this show in that refugee camp. And they found a refuge from Greece. They came to Germany and they found a refuge there. During that whole journey, I used to do this chair act where I try to sit on a chair and I fall. And I try to sit on a chair and I fall because Popo is that stupid that he can't even sit in a chair. So during the whole journey, they were pretending to be Popo and trying to sit on a chair and fall, and try to sit on a chair and fall. And they would walk, and then they were telling every time they sat in a car, they tried to go, oh, and all the cousins, and they would laugh, and they had this photo of Popo with them. And that's how he recognized me. From Greece, you meet the person in Germany. And that's what I think clowning and laughter does. It creates beautiful memories that you can cherish all your life. And it gives kind of a hope. It creates this beautiful bonding amongst people. Because if you can laugh together, somehow you bond together. So it kind of restores my faith again and again when I experience these kind of stories.
That's awesome.
That's beautiful. I mean, with all of the like really hard moments that you've had to see, it's really cool that there's been moments like that where people recognize you and you guys are building that bond and knowing that lives are changing, right? So, out of all of the smiles that you have helped to create, is there one that like sticks out in your mind now and like one you'll never forget?
Yeah, yes, I have. I think in Bhutan, when we were traveling in Bhutan, we visit this monastery, and all monks, our audience were all the monks who came there to study, to be the priests, the Buddhist monks. And the room was cramped up with all these small lamas, you call them, the small monks. And they had one of the most beautiful smile in the world. Like, all of them smiling like that. And in the middle of the show, the Bhutanese prime minister entered, and we offered to improvise with him, and he improvised with us. And the Bhutanese prime minister was improvising with us in the show, and he was smiling. And then he went and he sat with them. And I think that was one of the beautiful memories of laughter. Of course, I had a lot of memories of in the crisis areas, but this was a little spiritual. It's more, it's kind of their smile sometimes inspire you, like the fuller smile. It's coming from the core.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great to hear. I love hearing that. So, as we wrap up, I'm kind of wondering, Rupesh, what's your vision for the future of Clowns Without Borders?
The project that I started in India is called Laughter Per Kilometer. And I want to spread laughter in every kilometer of this country, which is very big. So it might take a lifetime or it might take several generations, but you have to dream big.
Awesome. Yeah.
Absolutely.
I also want to point out, or I want to ask about sort of a logistical thing, but Clowns Without Borders is a nonprofit organization, right? I imagine they rely on donations and things like that. So I just want to go ahead and give you a chance to kind of tell people where they can go to help out with the organization and anything like that. So
yeah. So far, all the work that we did it in India were supported by Swedish Clowns Without Borders. They were getting this yearly funding from several organizations and people donating. In India, we will have to be dependent on people donating. But we don't have our sites up and things like that yet, because we are not yet allowed. Maybe within coming 3-4 months, they should keep looking for Clowns Without Borders India, and soon they will have all the information if they want to support any project that we do here. Or I would say support any Clowns Without Borders in any country. Support US Clowns Without Borders. We all are doing the same work. It doesn't matter if maybe 10 smiles you can spread in Haiti or somewhere, I don't know, maybe in wherever they have projects. Support any Clowns Without Borders, I would say.
That sounds great, yeah.
Borders India too.
Sure. So yeah, the website is clownswithoutborders.org. It's like the main Clowns Without Borders. So awesome. Well, Rupesh, it's been a really great conversation. I laughed. I almost cried. So you've given me a heightened emotional experience for sure. Just talking with you. I think the work you're doing is just phenomenal. And, I just, want to thank you for that. We do at the end of our interviews have 3 questions we sort of ask everyone. We adjusted a little bit for this because it's more charity volunteer work and stuff. So, but the first one is, what are some of the myths associated with any of the stances or viewpoints that we've discussed today?
Clowns are scary.
There's a good one. Perfect.
Awesome. Okay. And so, to anyone who doesn't find this cause to be important or urgent, what are some key takeaways or points that you would like for them to consider?
If you don't support your community or any community to laugh together, the violence will come to your house one day.
Well said. Yeah. Yeah. All right. So last question, Rupesh, to our listeners who support your work with this issue, what would you call on them to think about or do after listening to this podcast?
Keep faith that there are people who actually believe in good world, and not everybody are vicious. People are out there doing good work. Anyone who does work to make someone's life better, support them. Support people who are going in the field and helping people.
Absolutely.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
Beautifully said. Rupesh, you have been an excellent guest.
Seriously.
Thank you for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I really appreciate it and wish you all the best and look forward to kind of staying in touch with you too, as you guys go on.
Absolutely. And you guys are doing phenomenal work. Keep doing it. I think I'm all right, but there are many people who are political activists and their voice needs to be heard, and you are doing that job, which is amazing. And please keep doing it. It's important.
Thank you, Rupesh. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning in to the Common Strides podcast.
We'd like to thank Rupesh for being an excellent guest. Check out the show notes for more information on Clowns Without Borders.
Join us next time as we head over to the UK for our next episode.
In the meantime, please check out adamgreenlee.com.
Yes, for any audio production, sound design, or music composition needs, visit adamgreenlee.com. And please download this episode, subscribe, leave a review or comment, or whatever you can on your preferred podcast listening platform.
You can check out our Common Strides YouTube channel, our official website, commonstrides.com, and our Patreon page if you'd like to support us in our efforts.
And as always, thanks for listening.